Sometimes you have to do that because the easy challenge is one you'll get lazy with. The big challenge gets you hungry.
Oh, how the tables turn.
That's a heavy topic, and we need to focus on that. If not for yourself, then do it for your children.
Black book is in black.
Black
book.
Men Talk, Black Book.
Black book.
Men Talk, Black Book. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers, sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And you're watching Black Men Can Talk, a show where Black Canadian men come together to have real, unfiltered conversations about life, culture, and community. Kofi Sadat, what's going on?
I'm all right, family. It's good to be here. Beautiful day. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Enjoying it. Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you done any training for your next marathon?
Yeah. I'm going to hold on to that. My first training will be, I'm going to jump in with 2 feet. I'm going to be doing a 10K.
Oh.
With, I think the JCA has their annual walkathon, jogathon, runathon. That's going to be May 4th. So Jamaican Canadian Association in Toronto. So I'm going to jump with 2 feet, man. I'm just going to see what I can do. I'll run, jog, walk, crawl, but I'll get there till the end. Right. So yeah, it's going to begin. I've done some light jogging.
Okay.
But I'm going to jump in with my 10K. Just to kind of, get that cold water all over you, bro.
Well, it's interesting. There have been some people, it's all women that have challenged you to do a cold water plunge.
Oh, I'm there.
Yeah. But the other day, a young lady said, well, what you can do is, I think it's for mental health. They're having this where you get cold water thrown on you instead of you going into a cold water plunge.
It happens to me every day, bro. I gotta go into that cold water, to the ice water. If my niece is watching now, trust me, she's been trying to get me in that cold water for about 2 years now. So we'll see.
I don't know. I'm just going. I don't know. I don't know about it. Not feeling it. Not feeling it. Anything else you want to chat about before we go to break? There is something I want to bring up, but I want to see if you want to bring it up first.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, and I'm going to put it out to people. Just a question, especially those in Toronto. Well, no, all over, right? But in Canada right now, tomorrow is a national election. The question I have, I'm still weighing it. Does it matter if Black people vote? So folks. Let us know. Weigh on that issue. Does it matter, right? If Black people vote, right? So we're there. I know there's a lot of folks weighing on both ends of this conversation. Yeah, just kind of putting it out there. If you haven't gone out there to vote, tomorrow is the big day here in Canada, across Canada, for Black Men Can Talk. So we want to hear, if the brothers are going to get out there and vote or do otherwise, because you can be political. Not necessarily always voting, but yeah, let us know what you think. What about yourself, Dr. Vibe? Is it a thing? Should
I'm going to vote. It's funny. I haven't voted yet. I didn't make a commitment. I was out of town, so I couldn't vote during the long weekend. I came back on the Monday, and I heard there was another day to vote on Tuesday. I wish I would have done that, but my polling station or voting station is 2 minutes walk or 3 minutes walk from where I live.
There you go.
So a nice little walk tomorrow. The weather's supposedly going to be decent.
Okay.
So I have a little walk, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens politically in that. Now, the other topics, if you have any takes on, 2 words: Shannon Sharp. Well, that's Black men. We got to chat.
Shannon dull. He ain't sharp. He's dull. When they say you're not the sharpest knife in the drawer, that's probably him. He had that last name, but I don't think he's living up to that last name of being Sharp. You know. But
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
definitely um it's definitely a topic, like, of course, more than about him, but us as Black men, and sometimes we find ourselves in these challenges or these challenging situations. um and I'm going to shout out to my old school days.
Mhm.
uh we won't get over those ways, but I used to definitely attend and study, Minister Farrakhan and the words, and there's always a lesson, um, always one lesson that stuck to me to this day. It says, rise above emotion. I think a
Mm.
lot of times these decisions we make from just a purely emotional space, but
Mhm.
not thinking about, you know, how it's going to really impact ourselves, our family, and generations later. So I think, the brother right now, he got himself in a pickle. Whatever you believe, one way or the other, you are still in the situation, right? So, what are your thoughts on the Shannon Sharp?
There's just so many different things. So I'll bring on just a number of bullet points. First of all, um, never hang with someone who has nothing to lose.
Mm,
Second of all, black men, black men. Three of the biggest things that tear a black man down is either sex,
mm,
alcohol, or gambling. Those are three of the biggest things that tear black men down. And we also got to think that, especially if you're raising, okay, anyone who has a black man in their life, could be partner, grandfather, father, nephews,
yes.
sons, whatever. Please tell them the world is a dangerous place, especially for black men. It is for black women also, but for
Yes.
black men, think, man, put your guard up. Put your guard up, man. It's really, really, and the challenging thing is this story happens over and over, especially with a number of black celebrities. Not all.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
A few years ago it was Jonathan Majors.
Yeah.
He was associated with a non-melanated lady.
Mm-hmm.
Bang, he got torn down.
Yeah.
Mr. Sharp, it's a whole conversation itself, but just bullet point wise,
Yeah.
and also too, entertainers. These people are entertainers, family. And remember too, they are where they are because of the support of non-melanated people. So if the non-melanated people support them, the non-melanated people can tear them down.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a slippery slope, man. Because I know at the end of the day too, sometimes they see themselves as being invincible, right? Because of the positions that they're in or the money that they have, right? But it is what it is. Like, at the end of the day, you are a black man, and you're a black man in America, and you're a black man in the spotlight,
Yep.
right? And you're a
Yep.
black man that's, we're not going to criticize because on that level, because, we all have our challenges. And I think we don't want to pretend like we're all self-righteous, right? Because we all do that. But that being said, it's a reminder for us to learn, from our brothers who have made that mistake, and to figure out how we now can do better in our
Yeah.
own lives, right? Because like anything else, Shannon Sharp has his own things, right? But I think that's, again, it's that whole thing we've been seeing, that I'm an invincible person because of the particular status that someone else has given to me, right?
Right.
It's not based on your own self definition, or it's not based on like the people in your culture saying, hey, we respect and elevate you and whatnot, right? It's really based on that piece, and you're just as good as when they want to get rid of you. That's
Now,
it.
the only saving
That's
grace,
it.
and they said now I think one of his saving graces is he does sell some properties, but the thing is, this alleged lady is suing him for $50 million.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, it was reported that he was in the process of signing a new $100 million contract. Half of that could be gone.
yeah, yeah.
But it's another time for
Another
that
time, another topic.
another topic, because we got better people to hang out with right now. So we're gonna be back in a few moments with a new friend to the Black Men Can Talk family, but a gentleman that Paul knows a lot more than I do. I haven't seen him for a minute, but he's a global traveler now. So I guess I knew him when. So we'll be back in a few moments with a new friend that all of you should know some more about. And we'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Five Blacks Restaurant Week, an amazing week, a flavorful week. We are eating good.
It's a national campaign created to promote Black-owned Canadian cuisine, food trucks, pop-up kitchens, and chefs.
Go out, taste the food, enjoy it, and get to know us and to get to know our culture.
Puts the spotlight on Black-owned dining establishments right across the country, not just here.
There we go. Black Restaurant Week coming up. So please check it out and go to the website, buybox.com/restaurant week. I'm going to be checking some stuff out that week. So if you're in Canada, I'm challenging you to check out some good food that week also. A few things before we get our friend up. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you want to advertise your business, product, or service on our show, please email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And we've got some people doing it. Some people have joined our Discord group. One of them being Sadat has joined. And a few others. We're starting to get the momentum going up with the group. So that is absolutely fantastic. Let's get our new friend up. Do you want to introduce him or do you want me to?
You know what? I'm gonna let you do that because I'm familiar with our friend, and I can add any flavor to it. But go ahead.
All right. Well, Neil Logik Donaldson is a visionary educator, storyteller, and founder of Stolen from Africa, a Canadian nationally recognized arts education organization rooted in hip hop, cultural reclamation, and youth empowerment. With over 15 years of experience in building programs, his work bridges classrooms, communities, and continents. A dynamic public speaker and curriculum developer, Neil is also the creator of Authoritative Mindfulness, a transformative frameworks that bring emotional intelligence, cultural identity, and community wisdom into the heart of education. Through his powerful storytelling, whether in workshops, TikTok videos, or his Stolen from Africa YouTube channel, he unpacks generational trauma, resilience, Pan-African identity, and the practical tools needed for tangible change. His voice resonates globally, recently developing ties across Southern Africa, which he's very excited about, and he says he hasn't gotten over that trip yet, through digital activism and youth-led cultural initiatives. Above all, he is a father, artist, and builder of futures, using media, mentorship, and message to connect, inspire, and activate. So let's welcome to the Black Men Can Talk stage, Logik's in the house.
Yes.
Hey,
What's up?
Logik, what is
man.
going on, man?
Hey, man, I'm just a black man who can talk, yo. That's all it is right now. You know what I'm saying? So happy to be here.
Black men can talk, and if you're a black man, they can talk you, and you're home, family.
Come on, man. This is home. This is family, man. Dr. Vibe, good to see you.
Yeah,
I remember
been a long time.
Yeah. I remember that we did that podcast Vibe many years ago in Chester Lee.
Yeah.
I'm bringing it way back. That's the last time I remember, right? Yeah. That's probably a good 7 years or so, or something like that.
Well, I'm still here and you're still here, which is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
We're really happy to have you here. I'll kick it off. Who is Logik? Who's Logik at the core beyond the titles and platforms?
Who is Logik at the core? I would say I am just someone who's really passionate about connection. Just understanding the intercomplexities of just humanity within ourselves, within each other, within the communities at large. I would probably just sum it up like that, man. Everything that I do, everything I think about is about connection. Yeah.
Good.
Love it.
What does connection look like and feel like to you?
Connection, I would say, it would look like having understanding, creating spaces for empathy, hearing voice, sharing space, and yeah, that's just what comes to mind for me right now, man. Yeah,
No
yeah, that's what's
problem.
up.
All
So
right.
Dad, I'll flip it over to you because you know I can go in on questions, but you go next, man.
No doubt, man.
Brother, always good to see you. Welcome, Black, from your long journey.
Yeah, yeah.
I was actually with Dwayne yesterday at the dinner
Okay.
farm. So you know
Peace
what I
to
mean?
brother Dwayne, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be talking to you about the journey. But before we get into your journey back home, let us know about your journey here. You know, I mean, I know you're originally not from Toronto, but you've been here for a minute. So let us know, you know, where you're coming from, your background, and you know, maybe how you meet here, and you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah.
My family's from Jamaica. You know what I'm
Woo-hoo.
saying? Yeah, so I would say like my foundation is, yeah, that's how would I put it down, man? So yeah, I
Yeah,
come from Toronto.
we're getting deep, but go ahead. What's your
Yeah,
foundation?
just coming from being born and raised in Toronto, and I think having the balance of culture. Yeah, sorry, man. My brain's just kind of today was just kind of a rough day and whatnot, but
No problem.
yeah.
Justin, I hear you.
I want to jump in. When was the moment that you knew that culture would be your journey? Culture would be your jam?
That's a good question. I think through hip hop. Like hip hop was probably the foundation of me connecting to my culture and just finding like a sense of belonging. So I remember hearing like Public Enemy, what I mean, coming up. The album specifically, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, comes to mind. And in particular, this one song, I think it was The Night of the Living Bassheads, where like the intro, where it says like, once we were brought here, we were robbed of our name, robbed of our culture, our identity, and we lost our religion, our culture, our God. And I remember hearing that when I was young. That always stuck to me. I didn't really understand what it was, but it always, stuck to me. And, one of the earlier foundations of like, L Cool J, of course. Yeah, like, hip hop was definitely like, the foundation of that. And it just made me feel good, and then I would even take it over to like media as well. So, certain movies. I remember when the Malcolm X movie in '92, that was like pretty empowering, and just essentially growing up in the '90s as well, like in that golden era of hip hop. So there was a lot of happening around culturally. I would also say, my earlier days, like my mom would bring me to a third world bookstore when I was a kid. So Third World Bookstore was like a cultural hub here in Toronto. There's shout out to Lenny, man. Rest in peace and whatnot. And I think just being as a kid, being in those types of environments really planted the seeds, for me. Seeing older Black men discussing, relevant issues, that's happening within community. And just seeing the passion of that. And again, being small and not really understanding what's really happening, but just knowing that there's like a passion there, and then knowing that I'm part of something, I would say would be, kind of like the foundations of that. Yeah, for sure. And especially since, these experiences and teachings I wasn't really getting in school as well. Right. So it just to know that these spaces even exist was really empowering for me, man. Yeah.
100%. So I know you just mentioned school, and we didn't get these teachings when we're coming up in school. Do you want to share about some of what you've done with SFA? And for folks who don't know what SFA is, because they see your lovely shirt and they see my shirt, they may not know.
Yeah, true indeed, man. True indeed.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, talking about school. Tell us about the work you're doing in school and why it's important.
Yeah. For us, well, okay. So with Stolen from Africa, it started off as like a T-shirt campaign back in 2004, and it started because of like the knowledge that I was getting in university. I took a course called Caribbean Thought at the University of Toronto, and that was led by Professor Ratoiru, man, rest in peace. And that really opened up my mind to just the systemic and systematic ways of how we're, excluded and our histories being erased, and, just the lack of representation. So receiving all of this like knowledge, that was just so empowering for me, because school was more so of like a social kind of gathering. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really make the connection of like education and empowerment in the school setting until I got to university. And that's when I started realizing that, oh, it's like this knowledge is being gatekept, and this information I'm getting now should have been accessible when I was much younger. So with that being said, that's kind of like where the drive like really comes from. When I was younger, I was in French immersion and being like, the only Black kid in my class, and having these like experiences, and I didn't want other Black students or Black youth to feel that degree of like isolation and exclusion. So so that's really what drove this connection between like arts and education. And how I got into the schools was back in 2006 or so. I got invited to do a presentation at this youth leadership graduation, and it was really powerful because at the time there was David Miller, who was the mayor at that time. And what it was is they got youth from various communities, and we did a presentation and we performed, and everybody just loved the message, standing ovation, all of that, and at that same space, we got support from the mayor. He ended up writing us like a support letter saying that, hey, the message of Stolen from Africa is resonating with hundreds of youth and whatnot. And that was really powerful. And at that exact meeting, we got in contact with a teacher who invited us to the school. So we used like the mayor's letter, and we went to the school and we did a presentation, and it's like history from there. The students were all engaged and supportive, and that's when I started realizing that, okay, this is something, like there's this idea of bringing community into the classroom that could be really powerful, and that can make connections. So with that being said, what we do in schools is related to just creating authentic spaces, where Black youth can be, to talk about some of the issues that they're experiencing that may hinder their focus within schools, because sometimes there's things that's happening within community, things that's happening at home. And also, again, when it comes to curriculum, it's about like, how do we find things that's culturally relevant? So there's a lot of gaps in that space. So we've been able to fill that gap. But I would say like 5 years or so, maybe about 7 years or so, we've been also really including like spaces for like mental health, and emotional intelligence. And, with our program called the Responsibility Program, it's about supporting youth so that they are, minimizing their reaction in the sense of shifting that to more, circumstances and whatnot. So a lot of our work has been really focused on that. And, we're in several schools now, and, have worked with, hundreds of young people representing, and it's been an incredible journey. Yeah.
Love it. Do you mind if I do another question, Dr. Vibe?
Hey, it's there's room for everybody. Go for it.
There you go. So I know that you have you mentioned that you guys have your label in terms of your active wear or your gear and stuff like that. So there's a lot of young people out there that they're looking to launch their own clothing line. But what would you say to young people who are doing it or want to do it if they haven't done it as yet, and the connection between community and empowerment when it comes to your brand of clothing, Stolen from Africa? So what is the relationship between fashion,
I was going to say that, like,
community development?
I think when it comes to fashion, like, I think like the most powerful brands like really build community around like an idea. And, with Stolen from Africa, it's, connected to that cultural empowerment. Like when you're wearing a shirt that says Stolen from Africa, it doesn't require much like explanation. It's like, it's like, you're wearing a uniform, and you know that you're connected to something bigger than just yourself. It's like a collective consciousness and an idea. And especially when there's it's like filling a gap as well. There's a need for that like ancestral memory, and I find like even when young folks see my shirt for the first time, they may not really fully get the intercomplexities of what Stolen from Africa is or what it means, but there's something that connects. They just know it's dope, So it starts off with that, so when I think of brands, it's I would say really build around like an idea that's empowering, that's bigger than just like yourself,
Right.
something that people can like gravitate towards, that's what I would say for sure.
All right, peace.
I know we want to talk about the journey to Africa, but I want to slip in just for a quick moment, authoritative mindfulness.
Yeah, go ahead.
And can you break
Yes.
down what it means and why it's so needed right now?
Yeah, true indeed. So authoritative mindfulness is like our it's a version of our responsibility program, but designed for educators. So like how that came about was a principal came up to me and was talking about how we needed some like anti-Black racism trainings, where this was a school that was I would say like pretty much like all predominantly white staff, if not everybody, with the exception of the custodians. And students, it was pretty much all Black students, and there was some issues that have come about. And just from working in certain spaces for a while, I recognize like the power of language and just a bit of like marketing and reframing things. So when things are framed as anti-Black racism, that's going to shut down people. They're just going to be like, well, I'm not racist, so I don't need this training. You know what I mean? So, but authoritative mindfulness is more of like a gentler way of bringing more awareness, right? So it's like, hey, I'm not saying to give up your authority. I'm just saying to be a little bit mindful. And here's how we can do that. So authoritative mindfulness is really centered around the idea that the intercomplexities that hinder a student from being present in class or in school, often or a student's ability to be, it's also for a teacher's ability to educate. So we all have these intercomplexities of things that's happening outside of school, but then oftentimes we have our own biases and judgments, right? So instead of looking at a student who may come to class late, and then they're just like, well, why are you late? Go to the office. It's more so, okay, well, let's find another way that we can bring this student in. Maybe they have to, like for example, who had to bring my younger brother to daycare in the morning. So sometimes I would be late, but just creating spaces for a more inclusive environment will, encourage, and just create more of a connective type of energy. So that's kind of like the foundations of that. And we do like several exercises, with that, like reminding educators of why. And it's so interesting, how many people kind of like, forget to kind of go back to that space, because, after we for several years, it's just kind of like automated and whatnot, but just to remember like the why, that passion, and then not to lose that passion, because we can get caught up in the day-to-days and whatnot, but it's really creating that spaces of empathy and compassion. And one key part of this program is like an anonymous component. So we've asked teachers like when was a time that they were going through something in their life that created challenges for them to educate. And, the responses that came out there were just mind blowing, from not knowing the curriculum enough, to admitting that they're just not prepared or whatnot, to, dealing with, elderly parents, being caregivers, or, dealing with divorce and all kinds of things. And really just creating spaces for empathy and just knowing human beings, we're all going through things, what people are going through. But if we can have a little bit more compassion and empathy, then that can create spaces for connection. So that's just a little bit about what's authoritative mindfulness about.
Good stuff. And just noticing Dr. Tachi is in the house. Good evening, Dr. Tachi. Check her platform out called Indie Soup Media. She is based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Her platform on YouTube is just over a year old and has over 25,000 YouTube subscribers. So it's a huge network of independent content creators, myself being one of them. I'm also on the advisory board. So good to have you in the house, Dr. Tachi. Paul?
There you go. All right, all good. So I'm getting back to the elements of stolen from Africa. And I know that
Yes, sir.
I always say it's our ancestors' wildest dreams for us to return. So even though we're stolen from Africa, it seemed like you've done the reverse journey and you went back to Africa. So before you let us know the depth of that journey,
True.
why did you find it necessary to return what I consider home? Why did you want to go to Africa?
Yeah, well, from starting an organization or a movement stolen from Africa, like that has always been, the dream, the drive. And of course, coming from Jamaica, Rastafari and, all that, like Africa has always been kind of like the focal point. And, like I know a lot of us, we do it, mentally and spiritually, but physically, really like changing it. I think it just makes the connection to Africa more tangible, so it's not this like far reached mythical place, it's like, no, this is heaven on earth. Like we can make that connection, right now. And, I really feel, especially coming back, that I feel like it's integral for every Black person. And I know that, there's challenges when it comes to travel and whatnot, but I really wish that everybody can have that experience, because I feel, at least I'm not going to speak general, I'll just speak for me now. Going there, like I felt like it's like returning to a part of me that was missing. I was often asked the question of or the comment rather, that people say, oh, like going to Africa will change you and come back a new person. And I really feel like I came back more like myself. And really just to kind of demystify the lies that we've been told, especially growing up. I remember as a child, hearing stuff like, like African booty scratcher and all these different, derogatory terms that, like being African was like worse than the N-word. You know what I'm saying? Like just the way how things were, and to kind of like decolonize all of these things that we've been taught, I think are very, very important. So it's been empowering for myself. And yeah.
Nice.
I want to jump in, and I don't know if you can reflect on this, because I can feel the passion is still there from your journey.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind on the plane over there?
You want honestly?
It's up to you. It's up to you, man.
Yeah, I mean, what was going on I was just like, hey man, I just hope nothing happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we're on a flight, the first flight was from Toronto to Ethiopia, and that's like about like a 13-hour flight, right? So
yeah.
I'm just like, there's turbulence, all kinds of stuff going on, and I'm just like, hey man, I just want to make it. At least let me just make it.
You just want to make it.
Yeah. So that was kind of like what was going on through my mind, but also I would say that I'm not going just for me alone. Like I'm going for like everybody who hasn't gone yet, or who couldn't, or people who just never had the opportunity. I was also thinking about like my grandmother, who passed away at the end of January. So it was like very like fresh. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So there was like a lot of emotions and things of that nature. So I was carrying all of this important energy with me, and so I knew that it was going to be like intentional. Like this trip wasn't like a vacation for me. It was a mission, really. So I was kind of coming with that kind of lens, like I was really like locked in, and I was like, okay, I got to document. I want to make sure I find some like authentic connections here to bring back, and then, but not just to bring it back, but connections that I can like also nurture. So even when I am back, that link is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna to hail up Ethiopian Airlines. I know you guys traveled on Ethiopian Airlines. I've been there
I was
twice.
impressed.
I love Ethiopia. Just the power of even seeing, because again, we're talking about debunking some of the negative stereotypes about Africa that we all knew. Like we wouldn't think that Africa has its own airlines, or an African country has its own airlines, right?
It was extremely like powerful, and the food was probably the best plain food I've ever had.
I'm telling people, listen, I'll swear by it. I'll just jump on the plane for the food alone. But
Yeah,
we don't have a contract with Ethiopian Airlines, but yo, the food,
yeah,
the food was dope.
yeah. No doubt.
Want to
And
shout out Frequency Event Promotions, says greetings, Frequency is in the house, good to see you. Then I want to build on that what you were thinking on the Traveler when you landed on where you were supposed to be. Can you reflect back on what that feeling was the first time you put your feet down?
Yeah. Landing in Namibia, in Windhoek, Namibia was really, really powerful, man. I mean, just like the air, the breeze, it just felt like home, I've traveled to Jamaica a couple times, so that was kind of like my reference. I was like, yo, this is like yard, I mean? It's like we out here. But yeah, and it was great because, I was traveling with a group of folks, with Dwayne Morgan and Travel Lead and whatnot. So, it's like a collective of us. But of course, like I was like kind of in my zone, and just happy to be there, just coming with an open mind. I didn't have any expectations really. Like I just wanted to like make authentic connections and just to really experience. So I was glad, and I was like ready to go. Something that I'll add too is when we landed, it was the last day of Black History Month, so it was February 28th. And when I got to the hotel, one thing I like to do whenever I travel, I look on like local news and whatever. I like to see what's happening on the ground. I'm just curious like that. And all over the news was information for a funeral service that was going to be taking place the following day. And that was for Sam Nuoma, who is Namibia's founding father, so he was, a pretty big deal, founding father in Namibia. So, original first presidents. And it was really powerful because it's almost like the city just stopped really, like every news channel was talking about him and just giving him a lot of praise. So I didn't really know much about him. So I started doing some research and realizing like, yo, this guy's a G, man. This is like a real freedom fighter right here. And, he lived to the age of 95, which I feel is incredible. This is someone who, went in exile for like 30 years, very similar to like, Nelson Mandela and whatnot. So the people in Namibia really like adore him. Like there's like photographs everywhere along the side of the road. So I ended up doing like a TikTok video, just kind of being like, yo, this is incredible news, because I'm like, this is the last day of Black History Month. So I'm still in that zone. And I know that Africa doesn't have Black History Month, but I'm still in my Canadian vibe. I'm just like, this is, like the timing, the synergy of it. I'm like, this is a message for me. This is what I was looking for. Right. And yeah, so I made that TikTok post, and it kind of like blew up online, and all kinds of Namibians were thanking me and just showing love and giving me, all kinds of like supports and whatnot. So to, answer your question, like landing in Namibia the first day, like it was already like activated, what I mean? Like that, I was like, wow, I'm only here for day one. And if I had to leave right now, I'm already good. You know what I'm saying? Like just because of the love that I received online. So that kind of really set like the tone for my trip. Cause I'm like, okay, this is how I like to use social media as a way for connection and, like digital Pan-Africanism and all that good stuff. Right. So yeah.
So picking up on that, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because of course, Dwayne had to spill the beans and said that Logik was videotaping, audio taping, everything, which I love it. Yeah. So I want to kind of ask you the question, what is the importance of documenting the moments, right? What is the importance of documenting even our history? Because now it's history, you've left. But what's the importance of documentation? Why do you feel it's so necessary to document these moments.
Yeah. I feel like it's important just for memory. You know, like there's so much details that we forget in the day to day. Like if I was just taking pictures, there's still going to be gaps, but I feel for me documenting my mindset when it comes to documentation is, I'm not documenting for myself or even like our generation per se. I'm thinking like 7 generations down the line, like I'm doing this for those who are not even born yet. Like that's just where I'm thinking, to let them, so that we know that we are here and that there's people who care about culture and history and identity, because how that develops us like spiritually and whatnot, right? So and then also just the simple fact that like if we don't tell our stories, then someone else will, and they may not have their best interests in mind, right? So for me, man, I really recognize the power of storytelling, and especially now that we live in this digital era where there's so much that we can like share and mobilize like online. It's a really powerful tool, and like like you don't even have to like be traveling to Africa to document like literally your day to day, like as much as like simple and just kind of regular that people may feel, like there's going to be golden nuggets. It's similar to like journaling every day. Like you journal every day. After a while, when you look back, you're like, oh wow, that's what that was. But in the moment, you just it's kind of insignificant. But I think it just really helps with memory and just kind of reinforces purpose. Yeah.
Sure.
I want to ask, how did the South African youth and activists you connected with reflect or challenge what you've seen here in Toronto?
Well, I think because my approach was genuine, authentic, vulnerable, and coming from that space, so I was like well embraced. I think like my whole angle was really just showing a different, basically challenging the way in which how Africa is presented or marketed outside of the continent. It's like presented in a way that we're not even looking in this direction as like a place for travel, as a place for connection and whatnot. So my communications online, because that was primarily where I was communicating with people, like online, because we had a really stacked itinerary that was already pre-orchestrated, so we went along with that. But a lot of my communication was online, and they were just grateful for my angle, I guess. I didn't come as I heard a lot of comparisons of whether it's like Americans coming down and having a certain kind of energy of like taking up space, that people weren't really too fond of. But my whole approach was, hey, look, I'm a guest here, you know what I mean? And I'm just here to learn and striving to connect, and just really, again, like decolonizing some of the perceptions, right? Because I'm looking around at certain places, I'm like, wow, like Namibia has a lot of desert type environment, so I'm like, wow, this looks like Arizona. So people who like that kind of vibe, and you come out here for that kind of connection. So I was really just using my commentaries, really just having contrast to like perception versus like what's really happening. So with that being said, like I feel like I was really well received, and they were just encouraging me to like spread the truth, let people know back home about like what's really going on this side. Yeah.
Just want to shout out Frequency Event Promotion says Logic, what's good? Also says Sadat, good day. And also says thanks, Dr. Vibe backed. So that's good. Paul?
Yeah, for sure. So are there any particular experiences that you had that you kind of like your wow moments? Some of your wow. Cause I know you guys went to more than one country, and I know it's about 2 weeks or so. But are there any like wow moments? Like, well, I didn't really know that, or I was surprised by that. Did you have any moments like that?
Yeah. I would say, okay, well, there's a few that comes to mind. Like one, just seeing statues of Black freedom fighters in like every country. Like just. I know it sounds simple, but like for me, just seeing like, full, and I'm not talking about statues that are just, like a head monument kind of thing. It's like full body statues of Black freedom fighters. Like these guys, were once nothing else, and celebrated for their like resilience. Like that was just like a really powerful thing to see. The images of that, and just other things like Black faces on money. I was for example, in Botswana had this, and I wish I had some. I wish I didn't bring any money with me, but the $200 bill in Botswana had an image of a Black woman read to her children, and just an image like that on money is just powerful on just like a vibration frequency level. Like for us, our money has, these colonial faces and whatnot, and that brings a particular energy. So I'm looking at this money and I'm just like, wow, Black woman reading to her children, and this is on the money. That was powerful. I think also too, going to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe was pretty breathtaking. We have Niagara Falls out, Victoria Falls, or sorry, Ozi Oyatunya is the indigenous name.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like the indigenous name. So, learn about Victoria Falls and how that came about, which was, named after Queen Victoria and, the colonizers and whatnot. And I was a little upset that I'm not even going to mention the colonizer's name because that's kind of, I don't want to give that space, but he has like a big statue, right in Victoria Falls. And that was kind of problematic for me. So those are kind of like some reflective moments. But I'll say the biggest aha and just, the moment that really reflected was going to the Apartheid Museum in South Africa. That was probably the deepest museum experience I've ever experienced. Like when we talk about experiential learning, like that's what it is. Because like when you enter, you're given a ticket, and it's like you're either white or Black. And I went through the white side. I was white for my time being. So there's two entrances, and you go through there. You have a particular experience. And and just really seeing like the faces of colonization, and so through the museum, there's like all these artifacts, and just they got all the receipts, all the receipts of the atrocities, and the genocides and things that were happening to the people, and seeing the footage of the resilience of the South Africans. You know what I'm saying? It was extremely moving. Like I probably cried a couple times, probably at least 5 times periodically throughout the experience, and where I just had to kind of be by myself and just really be with that, and but I was also, I was like upset, but I was also very like proud of like the resilience, and then just to kind of reflect that this history is recent, like the footage I'm watching is from like 93, what I'm saying? So this isn't some like 1950 kind of vibe. It's like this is real business, and I couldn't help but to look at the footage and be like, wow, if I was a young person, because I'm looking at the young people, then I'm like, okay, these look like my peers, right? And if I was in South Africa, like I would 100% be there as well, and that's what was getting me like emotional, and just being like, wow, like what it means to to stand up for something and to fight for your people, for what you believe in, even if you don't live to see the benefits of that. It's deep. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that was probably like the biggest moment, and that was like one of the main places that I was looking forward to visiting, and I'm kind of glad that was towards the end of our trip, because that would have set the tone for the whole vibe. And I don't know, it might have been a different, but other than that, like it was it was great. Another thing I'll say too is in Namibia, we went on the Catamaran, so we're on on the water and just enjoying the vibe and whatnot. But what stood out to me was the connection that the Namibians had with animals. Like I really saw this kind of like interconnection. And what I mean by that is like, so when we're getting on this, like, this boat, there was like this seal, that just kept popping in and out of the water, and it was just hanging out, and just, it went on the boat and moving around. I'm just like, well, I'm not used to all this. It's kind of wild, and like, like our guide is like talking with the seal, and the seal had a name, and, they're communicating. I'm like, wow, that's wild, And then they would have like, these birds, man, these huge like pelicans that would just like fly around and come land on it, and then would feed them, and just the connection, like being one with nature, and
Yeah.
and it's like that everywhere, and that was just like a powerful thing. So, like it wasn't like nature or animals were like a nuisance, kind of like how we have here. It's like all these squirrels and these raccoons. It's like, no, it's all one.
Yeah.
And that was something that really, really stood out, so yeah.
Go ahead.
Just want to ask you, in what ways did this trip deepen your sense of Pan-African identity and purpose?
Okay, going with the good questions, man. I think it's real simple, just going there and going to, like, and I'm glad we got to visit 4 different nations, just to kind of get like a wide range of perspectives and whatnot. And I would say, just going to each country and just looking at people, and it just felt like my brothers, for real. Like I'm looking at people, I'm like, yo, you could easily you look like someone I know back home in Toronto or Jamaica and whatnot. And really recognizing that, I think one thing that came to mind for me is, in Jamaica, we say out of many, one people, like I really look at Africa like that, out of many, like one people. As Black people, we have all kinds of flavors even within our Blackness and our Africanness, and just, seeing that. And it was just so effortless, the way how we daps each other, the way how mans we posing on the road, and just the way how we would talk. It reminded me, or one of the revelations that came to mind was that, we're not as disconnected as we think, like we're not as like far removed from Africa and the people as we think. As long as we are coming with a certain kind of consciousness, to connect and to understand and to find those like interconnections, then yeah, it's a beautiful place. And so I would say that it was just really affirming in that capacity, just to see like, wow, this is my brothers, man. This is my sisters, and to be treated with such like, dignity as well. Like everywhere you go, it's just beautiful Black people, just smiling at us. And, as soon as I said, I'm Jamaican, then everybody's like, yo, Wagwan, giving me daps. I'm like, what y'all know about Wagwan? It's like Jamaica's like the universal like language. It's like they knew that. So it's brought like another layer to that. And it was just beautiful, because I'm like, that's how we would vibe like in Toronto, or anywhere else. So just seeing that it's just really one people. And then it just started clicking, man, like what Marcus Garvey was talking about, like connecting to Africa really is what it is. And of course, there's a lot of energy that's happening in the continent right now. So I feel really, inspired. Yeah.
Cool. As we starting to wind it down with here, one of the words you shared a lot with the audience tonight is connection.
Mm-hmm.
Want to ask you, how can we as Black men create more intentional bridges between our elders, our peers, and our youth?
Ooh, that's a good one. Food. Bring food. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Cook out food, have people there. Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And I like the intergenerational piece as well. That's something that I've been really meditating on, and I feel we need to do more of. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about, okay, we got this like hardcore agenda and we're going to come up with a PowerPoint. It's like literally just being. Like, I think we need to get back to that. Like, that's something that has, coming back from the continent has got me like reflecting, really just having more spaces for us to be. We may have some like leading questions to get the conversation going, icebreakers and stuff like that. But I think just like casual connections and just being in the vicinity, like, seeing kids running around, like dominoes going on over here, card game over here, karaoke over there, just getting back to those like foundations. I feel like that's where I'm at right now. Like sometimes I try to think, okay, like what are, the community plans that we got to build, but I feel just getting back to those foundations is what's necessary, to just be in each other's space, hear the stories, for elders to be open-minded to hear like what's important to the young folks. Let's not worry about the pants sagging or the sideways hat. Like, let's just put that on the side for a moment and just appreciate being in the same space, and just really, enforcing that, that connection, because no man is an island. We live in such like an individualistic type of society where everybody wants to be independent, and I can do this all by myself, and that's the culture that's being thrown down our throats. But that's, for me, it's just a complete lie, and sometimes we just need to get over that and create safe spaces where we can also be vulnerable, because sometimes we don't have all the answers. Sometimes we didn't make the effort to make connections, but it's like, hey, we're striving to do that now. Create spaces for more like forgiveness and intergenerational healing, right? So those are some things that come to mind. Yeah.
Love it.
Food, bring the food.
I want to plug something. June 13th, Father's Day weekend. I'm creating a space for Black men and their families to come out, have some food, be in the park, connect with nature, like you said.
Well, Logik will be there. You said the magic 4-letter word. So there you go.
Let's go.
I got 2 more quick things for you, Logik. First of all,
Yes,
when you think about your legacy, whether it's through your children, your art, or stolen from Africa, what's one message you hope to leave embedded in the next generation?
Self-love, knowing that through understanding, our cultural identities and knowing that we've contributed to history, I feel like that connects with self-love, and through self-love, that creates like a bridge to connect with others. You start seeing, parts of you within them, like for me, when I'm connecting with people, I can, especially working with young people, I see parts of myself in them, the parts when I didn't have the knowledge or I was just kind of wandering and whatnot. So I think it's just that really that reminder, something that's greater than us, and self-love, and really to, just continue, like I feel like the work that I do is just a continuation of like the collective consciousness from, generations before me, whether we're talking like, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Nina Simone, like you name it, like I see it's all part of this like frequency, and I'm just doing my part to, to continue that memory, right? So when young folks, come up or they come across things, it's just that question, when you see stolen from Africa, it's like, well, what does that mean? And then that opens up the door for you to, go explore that. So, but yeah, everything I do, I feel like, really boils down to that self-love, and by having that, that's how we can really build community and find that connection within each other.
Yeah, love it.
Producer has a quick question for you. With all these good matters arising on your site and Sounds of Africa, what is the next mapping strategy as a follow-up to the trip? What's next on your table?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. What's next on my table is like I've been really connecting with my newfound family, particularly from Namibia and South Africa, online, and just really connecting there. So I'm looking to do more live, and I'll probably even invite some of y'all to be part of these conversations.
More than happy.
I don't really have any like. Sorry.
You said he'd be more than happy.
What'd you say? Sorry.
Yeah.
More than happy to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so my follow-up really is just continuing and nurturing these relationships, because I don't want to lose that, right? So I've through those conversations online, I found some like Namibians who live in Toronto. I met some Namibians who are in Mississauga, Toronto, and Timmins, Ontario. So I'm getting connected, and yeah, so just knowing that people are out here, and I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for these conversations online. And I think the next, building off of that, I'm looking to be more intentional. Okay, how can I put it? So I've really been reflecting on the idea that Toronto, in itself is kind of like a like a mini Pan-African hub. Like we have various African nations right here in our city, and not just people, but we have like families and communities. So I'm thinking like, okay, what does that look like to connect, here? I don't know if that's a barbecue or something like that. But then I'm also thinking about, okay, these people, these families are to other people home, and how could we create more authentic conversations amongst the the collective. I haven't really seen much of that. I'm sure it exists, but I know that I'm very much interested in contributing to that, and just using social media as a way for connecting stories and just connecting. So that's kind of like my next step, is really just nurturing these connections online, but how to make it tangible here. And then eventually, bring that back to the motherland. Like I would love to connect with some, government officials, in each countries and whatnot, and see, who knows, like what the possibilities could. The thing that really inspires me is just to be looking towards Africa, for connection, for identity, for empowerment. I want to see the energy that we had for, Black Lives Matter, like when that came about. I want to see like international protests, but for Africa. You know what I'm saying? And with some of the energy that's happening right now, it's not a far-fetched idea. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to be part of the movement, do my part in contributing, and that's how we doing it, yo.
All right. So my last question, before you go, my last question for myself around sharing the journey. Any plans to share the journey? I know you took a lot of media. Is there anything, like to maybe have some type of showing or sharing the whatever it is? Do you have any plans to kind of share the journey?
Yeah. I have a few different angles. I have like over like a terabyte of footage, so just to show you how much I was filming, literally from the moment I left my house to the moment my mom picked me up at the airport. I've been documenting. So yeah, I have a few angles. Like I want to create some mini, like, educational resources. There's certain clips that I can use for that. But I do want to put together kind of like a, like a documentary type of vibe that really just goes through, the journey, and just to kind of share that experience. But also from like the lens of Travel Lead. So I got to big up Travel Lead, big up to Colin and his wife, and they have their travel organization of trips, around Africa. So they primarily started in South Africa and now expanded. So so we'll kind of be centered around that. But I definitely want to create space for, I might just, start off with like selected few, like some of y'all, and key people that, are on this frequency that I feel need to be in this, and, we can create space for conversations. But that is definitely something I'm building on for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Well, Neil, my brother, I want to bless you for all you have done, are doing, and more exciting, will be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This journey is taking you to a next level. I can feel that through the screen.
Appreciate you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just doing my part, and hopefully, somebody gets inspired, and continue the torch going. Continue the movement. Yeah.
Well, you've inspired both of us tonight, and I'm sure many of the people are going to watch and listen to this on the replay.
Please.
If you want to get in touch with him, Instagram at Logik, and that's Logic with a K, by the way.
Right.
416. If you want to find out more from Solon from Africa, at SFA_community.
Yes,
so want to say, as always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace.
Please.
And look forward to hearing from you, and walk good.
Appreciate that, brothers. That's love.
All right. Keep the faith. Take care.
All
right. That was amazing. That was really good. That was really, really good conversation. Anything else you want to talk about before we let you jump?
Yeah, man. I'm inspired. I definitely feel inspired to make those connections here, and of course there, wherever there may be. It might be Africa, the Caribbean, but I think the importance of the Pan-African piece. I'm inspired by the journey, and I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, same here. I want the connections to become relationships.
Yes.
The connections to become relationships. It's great to connect, but I want to develop the relationships. And I know that Neil is going to take the next level, and I hope he has time to include individuals like you and I in that. So good way to send it off. As we close up, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms, email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Join our Discord group. People are doing it. Email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. If you want to get a hold of Sadat, there are so many places. Neza Jam.
I know.
Gmail.com. Instagram. Mooroon. Mooreroon, people, by the way. YouTube, NASA Community, Facebook, paul.osbourne.31, and also NASA Community on YouTube. Kofi Morris, you can get a hold of him. Email getwellstayfit@gmail.com. Instagram, Kofi Coach _ and also Cosmic Wellness Group. And myself, you can get a hold of me at the website, the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram at the drvibeshow, X/Twitter at drvibeshow, and an email address, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. You can watch replays of this epic conversation on The Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, on my website, and Paul Osbourne on Facebook, and NASA Jam at YouTube. So, my brother, another epic conversation. Thank you so much for taking the most valuable thing, your time, to hang out with us today.
Always.
All right. As always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and make it better. We'll catch you on the next conversation. Oh, and two last comments. Dr. Tachi says, great show. Also, Kofi Coach, he's watching Powerful Conversations Lions. And also want to shout out Ryan O'Neill Knight, who was in the house tonight. Says, greetings, gentlemen. You can catch Ryan and I Monday mornings and Friday mornings on The Morning Vibe. And as always, God bless, peace, well, keep the faith, and walk good.
All right. Time that our parents, they're like, I have nothing to teach you. I don't know nothing. And they know
my dad's at that point now. It says,
That's my point.
But I'm saying, no, Dad, you got lots more to give. You know how cold it is when these two brothers in their yard.
You know that. You know that. You don't know that, bro. You know
No
that.
joke.
I know we all have these things, but you know what? My go-to is this thing.
Wow.
Black book is in
Black
book.
Men Talk, Black Book.